I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible, but there's something about being compared to a ghost that nobody understands. When I said those words, that his brother would have been a better husband, I didn't pull them out of thin air. They'd been sitting between us for 3 years, growing heavier every time my husband mentioned Jake, every time his mother's eyes got that distant look, every time I felt like I was married to a memory instead of a man. But here's the thing everyone's missing: while they're calling me cruel and heartless, I'm not the villain in this story. Or maybe I am, but not for the reasons you think. The worst part about what happened isn't what I said. It's why I said it, and when you understand that, you'll see I was drowning long before I opened my mouth. If I don't tell this story properly, you'll never understand why I'm currently sitting in my sister's spare bedroom, blocked on every platform by my husband's entire family, with my mother-in-law posting cryptic Facebook statuses about respecting the dead and showing true colors. But once you know what I know, you'll see why those 6 words finally came out after being swallowed back down 1,000 times. This isn't just about one fight or one terrible sentence. It's about the fact that I've been competing with a dead man since the day I met Marcus, and I was losing before I even knew I was in a race. Everyone thinks they know what happened, that I'm the awful wife who disrespected her husband's deceased brother during a family dinner. But the real story will change how you see everything, including why Marcus left me at his mother's house and drove away without looking back. I'm going to tell you everything, including the part about what I found on Marcus's laptop 3 weeks before our anniversary, and the part that makes me look worst. I'm saving that for the end because you need to understand how we got here first. Marcus and I met 4 years ago at a coffee shop. He was gentle, thoughtful, the kind of man who remembered your coffee order and actually listened when you talked. On our 3rd date, he told me about Jake. His older brother had died 2 years earlier in a car accident. He was 29. Marcus was 27 at the time, and you could see it had broken something in him. I tried to be understanding. I really did. I asked questions, I looked at photos, I listened to stories. Jake sounded amazing, funny, ambitious, the kind of guy everyone gravitated toward. He'd been planning to propose to his girlfriend. He'd just gotten a promotion. All the usual tragic details that make a death feel even more unfair. You would have liked him, Marcus told me that night, holding my hand across the table. Everyone did. I should have paid more attention to the way he said it. Not you would have loved him or he would have liked you. You would have liked him, like it was my responsibility to admire this person I'd never meet. But I was falling in love, and grief is complicated, and I figured time would help. People heal, right? The sharp edges of loss smooth out eventually, and you learn to build a life that includes the memory without being consumed by it. I was wrong about that. The first 6 months were good. Great, even. Marcus was attentive and sweet. We took weekend trips, binged TV shows, talked about the future in that vague way people do when they're testing whether they want the same things. His family welcomed me. His mom, Patricia, was warm and asked about my work and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. Then we got engaged and something shifted. Marcus started talking about Jake more, not just mentioning him in passing but bringing him up constantly. When we were planning the wedding, he wanted to honor Jake somehow in the ceremony. A moment of silence, a chair reserved, Jake's favorite song played. I said yes to the moment of silence. It felt respectful. But then Patricia suggested I carry a locket with Jake's photo in my bouquet, and I had to draw a line. I want to honor your family's loss, I told Marcus carefully. But this is also supposed to be our day, about us, about our future. He got quiet in that way he did when he was hurt but didn't want to say it. Jake should have had this, he finally said. He should have married Melissa, they should have had the future. I know, I said, because what else could I say? And I'm sorry he didn't get that. But we can't make our wedding into a memorial. He agreed eventually, but I could feel the shift. Like I'd failed some test I didn't know I was taking. The wedding was beautiful. We did the moment of silence. Patricia cried through most of the ceremony, and I told myself it was normal. Mothers cry at weddings, grief bubbles up at big moments. Marcus held my hand tight during our vows, and I convinced myself we'd turned a corner. We hadn't. Marriage didn't change things. It made them worse. Suddenly every decision ran through this filter of what would Jake have done, or Jake would have loved this, or Jake always said. We couldn't watch a football game without Marcus mentioning Jake's opinions about the team. Couldn't go to a restaurant without hearing about the time Jake ordered something there. Couldn't have a conversation about careers or money, or literally anything without Jake's ghost sitting between us. I tried to be patient. I suggested couples therapy. Marcus said he didn't need it, that he'd processed his grief already, that he just liked keeping his brother's memory alive. When I pushed, he asked why I had such a problem with him talking about someone he loved. That's when I started to feel crazy. Because how do you argue with that? How do you say your dead brother is ruining our marriage without sounding like a monster? So I swallowed it. I smiled through the stories I'd heard 50 times. I nodded when Patricia talked about how Jake would be so proud of Marcus. I pretended not to notice that Marcus's childhood bedroom at his mom's house was untouched, but Jake's had been turned into a literal shrine, photos and trophies, and his Letterman jacket displayed like museum pieces. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, we started trying for a baby. I'd been ready for a year, and Marcus finally agreed it was time. We tried for 6 months with no luck. The stress was getting to both of us. That's when Marcus mentioned casually, while we were lying in bed after another disappointing pregnancy test, that Jake's middle name was Michael. That's a nice name, I said carefully. I'd want to use it, he said. For our son, Jake Michael, or maybe Michael Jake. I sat up. You want to name our baby Jake? To honor him, Marcus said, like this was completely reasonable. He should be remembered. He is remembered, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But we can't name our child after him. Our baby should have his own name, his own identity. You don't understand what it's like, Marcus said, and his voice had an edge now. You have all your siblings. You can't understand losing someone like that. The implication hung there that my feelings mattered less because I hadn't experienced his specific pain. That I was supposed to just accept whatever he wanted because grief trumped everything. We fought for hours that night. I said things I regretted. He said I was being selfish. We eventually agreed to table the discussion until we were actually pregnant, but the damage was done. Every time we were intimate after that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Couldn't stop imagining a future where I was expected to call my son by a dead man's name, where even my child would be a memorial instead of his own person. Everyone online thought I was fine, but privately I was falling apart. I started working longer hours to avoid going home. I made excuses not to attend family dinners. When I did go, I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body, smiling and nodding, while Patricia talked endlessly about both her sons, always in the same breath, like Marcus's accomplishments only mattered in relation to Jake's legacy. Marcus noticed my withdrawal but interpreted it wrong. He thought I was stressed about work, about the baby stuff not happening yet. He tried to be supportive in his way, which meant telling me that Jake used to say stress was just lack of perspective, and that I should try meditation like Jake used to do. I thought I was holding it together. I really did. But looking back, I was building toward an explosion, and I was too exhausted to see it coming. The breaking point started 3 weeks before our 3rd anniversary. Marcus was in the shower, and his laptop was open on the couch. We didn't have privacy rules about devices. We knew each other's passwords, we trusted each other. So when a message notification popped up, I glanced at it without thinking. It was from Melissa, Jake's ex-girlfriend. They'd been messaging. A lot, apparently. I told myself not to look, that it was probably innocent, them bonding over shared grief. But my hand was already opening the chat before my brain caught up. The messages went back months. They talked about Jake constantly, sharing memories, inside jokes. That part didn't surprise me. What made my stomach drop was the way Marcus talked about me. She doesn't understand, he'd written. She tries, but she didn't know him. Sometimes I think about how different things would be if Jake were still here. You guys would be married by now. He'd have kids. Everything would be better. Melissa had responded with a sad emoji and something about how life isn't fair. Marcus wrote back, sometimes I wonder if I settled. If I just wanted to not be alone, and she was there, and I convinced myself it was love. I should have stopped reading. I didn't. There were more messages. Marcus confiding that he resented me for not wanting Jake's name for our baby. Marcus saying he felt guilty for being happy sometimes because Jake never got that chance. Marcus describing our intimate life in vague terms that made it clear he was thinking about his dead brother during private moments with his wife. And then, 2 weeks ago, this message, I know it's wrong, but sometimes I wish I could trade places with him. Not die, just let him have this life instead. He deserved it more. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Marcus came out of the bathroom in a towel, smiling, asking if I wanted to order Thai food. I said yes. We ate dinner, we watched TV. He fell asleep with his head on my shoulder and I stared at the ceiling until dawn, feeling like my entire marriage had been a lie. I didn't confront him, I know I should have. But what was I supposed to say? I read your messages and discovered you wish you'd never married me. You're emotionally cheating with your dead brother's girlfriend. The words wouldn't come. Instead, I pulled away more. I started sleeping on my side of the bed instead of cuddled against him. I stopped initiating conversations about the future. I was shutting down, and some part of me wanted him to notice, to ask what was wrong, to fight for us. He didn't notice. Or if he did, he thought I was just in one of my moods. He kept talking about Jake. Kept telling stories. Kept existing in this world where his brother's ghost was more real than I was. 2 days ago was Sunday dinner at Patricia's. We went every other week, a tradition Marcus insisted on. I usually found excuses to miss half of them, but I'd been to the last 3 in a row trying to act normal, trying to pretend I hadn't seen those messages, trying to convince myself our marriage was salvageable. Patricia made pot roast, Jake's favorite. She always made Jake's favorites, even though he'd been dead for 5 years. The whole dinner was standard, Patricia asking Marcus about work, Marcus's younger sister talking about her new job, Patricia's sister discussing some church drama. I was exhausted, running on about 4 hours of sleep, still processing everything I'd read. Then Patricia brought out dessert. Apple pie. She set it down and got misty-eyed the way she always did when food was involved. Jake loved my apple pie, she said for probably the 100th time in the 3 years I'd known her. Remember, Marcus. Remember how he'd eat half the pie in one sitting? I remember, Marcus said, smiling. He had no self-control with your baking. You were always more disciplined, Patricia said, patting Marcus's hand. Jake was the wild one, you were the responsible one, but Lord, he lit up a room. He really did, Marcus's sister added. Everything's been dimmer without him. They kept going, trading stories, laughing about Jake's antics, getting teary about his absence. I sat there eating pie that tasted like sawdust, watching my husband's face animated in a way it never was when he talked about us, about our life, about our future. He would have been such a good father, Patricia said, and I felt something crack inside my chest. He and Melissa would have had beautiful children by now. They really would have, Marcus agreed quietly, and I just snapped. Well, we'll never know, will we? I said. Everyone went quiet. Patricia looked at me with surprise. I just mean, I continued, and I could hear my voice getting louder but couldn't stop it, that we don't actually know what kind of father Jake would have been or what his marriage would have been like because he's dead. He's been dead for 5 years, and maybe, just maybe, we could have one dinner where we don't treat him like he was perfect. Honey, Marcus said, his voice low and warning. Don't. Don't what? I asked. Don't point out that I'm sitting here listening to you all fantasize about a life that never happened while completely ignoring the life that's actually happening. You're upset, Patricia said, her face pale. I understand this must be hard for you. Hard for me, I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to my own ears. Patricia, I've spent 3 years coming to these dinners, hearing the same stories, watching you all worship someone I never met. I've been patient. I've been understanding. But I'm tired of competing with a ghost. Marcus stood up. We're leaving. No, I said, standing too. Not until I say this. I'm sorry Jake died, I really am, but your brother wasn't perfect, Marcus. He was a person, a regular, flawed person, and you've turned him into this saint that no one can measure up to, least of all me. You don't know what you're talking about, Marcus said, his face red. You never knew him. Exactly, I nearly shouted. I never knew him. But I know you, and I know that you've been so busy grieving what you lost that you can't see what you have. That's when I said it. The words I'd been swallowing for 3 years, the truth that had been poisoning me from the inside. Your brother would have been a better husband. The silence that followed was deafening. At least if I'd married Jake, I continued, my voice shaking, I wouldn't be competing with Marcus's ghost. At least Jake knew how to be present in his own life instead of living in the past. I realized what I'd implied only after the words were out, that I wished I'd married Jake instead. That Marcus was the consolation prize. That wasn't what I meant. I was trying to say that Jake probably didn't spend his relationship with Melissa obsessing over what he'd lost, that he probably lived in the present, but it came out all wrong. Marcus's face went white. Patricia made a sound like I'd slapped her. How dare you, Patricia whispered. How dare you speak about my son that way? I didn't mean, I started. Get out, she said, her voice stronger now. Get out of my house. Marcus was already grabbing his keys. We're done, he said to me. I can't even look at you right now. I followed him to the car, apologizing, trying to explain, but he wasn't listening. He got in the driver's seat. I went to open the passenger door. It was locked. Marcus, I said through the window. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, pure disgust. You can stay here and apologize to my mother, he said. Or you can figure out your own way home. Either way, I don't want you near me. Then he drove away. Left me standing in his mother's driveway while the sun set, while his whole family watched through the window. I ended up calling an Uber. Patricia wouldn't even open the door when I knocked to try to apologize. She just yelled through it that I'd shown my true colors and she always knew I wasn't good enough for her son. Her son. Singular. Like Marcus didn't count. Like he'd never counted, not really, because the good son was dead and Marcus was just the one who was left. That was 2 days ago. Marcus came home the next morning, packed a bag, and left again without speaking to me. He's staying with a friend. He's answered exactly 2 of my texts, both with single words. His entire family has blocked me on social media. His sister posted something on Instagram about protecting family from toxic people that was clearly about me. I've been trying to figure out how to fix this, but I don't know if I want to anymore. Because here's the part I haven't told anyone, the part that makes me look terrible but is the truth. I'm not sorry I said it. I'm sorry for the timing. Sorry I said it at his mother's house. Sorry I did it in front of his family. Sorry I phrased it in the worst possible way. But the content. The actual point I was trying to make, I meant every word. Jake probably would have been a better husband to me because Jake wasn't traumatized by Jake's death. Jake got to live in his present instead of drowning in someone else's past. And Marcus can't do that. Maybe he never could. I found out yesterday through a mutual friend because Marcus still won't talk to me that he's been seeing Melissa. Not romantically, supposedly. They're supporting each other through this difficult time. They got coffee the day after the dinner. They've apparently been meeting up regularly for months, exactly like their messages suggested. Part of me wants to scream at him for being a hypocrite, for leaving me because of what I said while he's been emotionally involved with his dead brother's ex-girlfriend, literally choosing a relationship with someone connected to Jake over working on his marriage with me. But I think I'm too tired to fight anymore. My sister says I should file for divorce. My mom says I should give him space and try couples therapy once he calms down. My therapist, who I started seeing 3 days ago because clearly I need professional help, asked me if I ever actually confronted Marcus about the messages or if I just let the resentment build until I exploded. I didn't confront him. I let it build. I'm not innocent here, but neither is he. The thing about being compared to a ghost is that you can't win. The dead don't have flaws anymore. They don't leave dishes in the sink or forget anniversaries or say the wrong thing at dinner. They exist in amber, perfect and frozen, while you're here being human and messy and alive. I couldn't compete with that. Maybe nobody could. Last night I finally did something I should have done years ago. I looked up Jake on social media. His accounts are still active, maintained by family and friends as memorials. I scrolled through photos, read posts, looked at who he was when he was alive. He seemed nice. Funny. Kind of cocky in that way young guys are when they're successful. There were photos of him and Melissa looking happy. Photos of him and Marcus as kids, as teenagers, as adults. You could see the bond they had, but I also saw other things. Posts from his friends about times he flaked on plans. An ex-girlfriend's vague post about guys who can't commit. A comment from Marcus on one of Jake's last photos, "Call me back, dude. We need to talk about what you said to mom." He was a person. Flawed and real. Not a saint, not perfect. Just someone who died too young and got frozen in time as his best possible self. Marcus couldn't see that anymore. Maybe he never could. And I couldn't keep living like a placeholder in someone else's grieving process. The worst part is that I did love him. I do love him, in whatever broken way that means now. I loved the man who was gentle and thoughtful, who remembered my coffee order, who listened when I talked. But that man was always partially somewhere else, living in a past I couldn't access, loving a memory more than he loved me. I'm not telling this story for sympathy. I know what I did wrong. I should have confronted him about the messages. Should have pushed harder for therapy. Should have never said what I said the way I said it. Should have left earlier if I was that unhappy instead of letting it explode. But I'm also not the only villain here. And I needed someone to understand that, even if it makes me sound defensive or bitter or unwilling to take responsibility. The truth is we both failed. He failed to be present in his own marriage. I failed to communicate until it was too late. We both chose the wrong battles and avoided the right conversations. Patricia called this morning. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She told me that Marcus is devastated, that the family is horrified by my behavior, and that if I have any decency I'll agree to a quiet divorce without making things difficult. He deserves better, she said. Both my boys deserved better than this. Both my boys, present tense. Like Jake, still here, still her son, still deserving things even though he's been dead for 5 years. I told her I'd think about it and hung up. Then I blocked her number because I'm done being made to feel like I'm competing for last place in my own marriage. I don't know what happens next. Maybe Marcus and I will try to work through this, though I don't think either of us actually wants to anymore. Maybe we'll divorce quietly like his mother wants. Maybe he'll end up with Melissa, bonding over their shared Jake-shaped grief, and everyone will think it's beautiful and meant to be. Maybe I'll eventually meet someone who sees me as a person instead of a substitute, someone who's working through their past instead of living in it, someone who wants to build a future instead of reconstructing one that never existed. Or maybe I'll just be alone for a while, figuring out why I stayed so long in a marriage where I felt invisible, why I couldn't say what I needed until it came out as a weapon, why I thought love meant accepting less than I deserved. I'm telling this story now because I need to admit something I haven't said out loud. I don't want to fix this. Everyone expects me to grovel and apologize and beg Marcus to come back. His family expects it. Part of me expects it. But when I imagine him coming home, imagine apologizing enough that he forgives me, imagine going back to Sunday dinners at Patricia's and hearing Jake's stories and swallowing my feelings, and competing with a memory for the rest of my life, I feel nothing but dread. The marriage ended 3 years ago. I was just too tired to admit it until I said the one thing that couldn't be taken back. Your brother would have been a better husband. Maybe he would have been, maybe not. But Marcus was so busy trying to honor Jake's memory that he forgot to be a husband at all. And I was so busy trying to be understanding that I forgot I deserved to be seen. That's the real confession. Not that I said something cruel, but that I meant it, and I'm not sorry anymore, and I don't want to go back. I'm sitting in my sister's spare bedroom, blocked by my husband's family, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. And the worst part, the part that really makes me the villain. I feel relieved.